nope, this way, no. It's all about the perspective that you have, you know? Like, I could look like I'm leaning to you, or I could look like I'm straight up and down. It's all about the perspective, really. Am I leaning, or is it the camera that's leaning? That's the difficult question, I guess, because you don't know. Is it that I'm leaning, or is it the camera that's leaning? So the word perspective means the way you see something. And in art, perspective is often referred to how you see something off in the distance. We've talked about it a little bit before, but if you are looking from here to there, out way far away, the things that are way far away appear like they are smaller. Now, of course, that huge tree over there is not shorter than your brother that is standing right beside you. But it's about perspective. That word perspective, again, means how you see something. And we often apply it to drawing things in the distance. But perspective has a second meaning as well. And in relation to how we see life, perspective could mean like how you see a problem. Like, I could have the perspective of us being off school is a very sad thing. But I could also have the perspective that being off school is awesome. So perspective means how you see the situation. And in art, perspective means how you see the object. And so I'm thinking about this thing, this concept of perspective. I'm thinking about it in relation to the fact that Easter is coming. And Jesus died on the cross. And so sometimes people say the cross is really a awful symbol to draw because death happened there. And they think that's really weird that Christians want to have art done about the cross. And if you start thinking that way, that perspective could lead you down a dangerous thought process. But the reason why Christians are so interested in drawing the cross or having artwork about the cross or having reminders like in necklaces with the cross on it is because of the great work that was done there on the cross. It has nothing to do with the death that happened, or maybe it has everything to do with the death that happened. But really, it has a lot more to do with the life that was lived prior to that death and the life that was lived after that death, because Jesus is the only man in history to rise from being dead. And he was somebody who did this because he loved us. And so the message of the cross is nothing about that death and everything to do about that love that he had for us and the fact that he wants to give us life. And so the cross in essence means life and not death. So it's about your perspective that you have, just like you think about school and it not happening. And you could think, man, that's a real bummer. I don't get to see awesome Mrs. Faustina. Or maybe you're like, the other perspective, whew, don't have to go to art class now that we're not in school. I hope it's not that one. But anyways, the point being, you can always have two perspectives on things. And so, in relation to Easter, I always choose, and I think that almost all Christians are choosing to look at the cross as a symbol of his love for us and his amazing grace upon us. And how incredible is that? It's hard to even understand how incredible that is. And so I finally get to it. What is the art project we're going to do today? Well, we're going to sum up everything I just talked about in our art project today. We're going to draw the cross in perspective. What? What does that mean? Well, as I said, perspective drawing is how you see something. So if you're looking at something from a certain way, it makes it look three-dimensional. Like in our artwork, if we just draw the front of a house, that can look a little flat. And oftentimes when kids are little, they will draw a house and then they will have, like if mom and dad live in the house, they'll have mom and dad drawn right next to the house, not standing in front of the house, but just right next to the house. And then if they have a little brother, little sister, they're also standing right next to mom and dad in the house. They don't stand in front at all. But as we grow, we start to develop perspective that, there is an in front of our house. It's not all on one straight line. That the picture could be drawn with mom and dad in front of the house and brother and sister in front of mom and dad. And then you start to see that, this is the foreground. These are the people that are up front. And then these are the people that are in the middle, and then the house is in the background. And so that's having perspective in your artwork. So today's drawing is going to be a pencil drawing of the cross of Jesus Christ, but it's going to be of us looking at it so that we can kind of see the side and we can see the perspective that we can have from our point of view. And then the other thing is that we're drawing the cross because it represents life and love and the amazing gift of grace. So, without further ado, who's excited to draw in some perspective into our lives, to choose joy for today? Choose joy because you were offered this amazing, amazing gift on the cross and this amazing, amazing grace that you just cannot even fathom how great it is. Well, I don't want to bore you with all of my talking. We're going to go ahead and we're going to just get started on this project. What you will need is a piece of paper and a pencil. Now, if you have one of those cool drawing sets that has, like an HB pencil and a B pencil and 6B pencil or whatever, they have these weird names. I want to explain a little bit about how those weird names work. HB is like your regular number 2 pencil. And if that's all you have at your house is a regular number 2 pencil, great. Go ahead and use it and you can draw with it, and I will explain in the video how you can use that HB pencil to kind of make some of the different shades that we're going to use today. I will, however, be using a 4B and a 6B pencil in addition to my HB pencil. They just make darker lines. Anything that has a B behind it, you can think of it as black or bold. It's going to add darkness to your shading. Anything that would have an H behind a number, that's going to be a harder pencil. It's going to have a little bit more clay in that graphite to make it lighter when it draws. So if you have pencils that have different numbers and letters, if it has a B in a number, it's going to be darker. The higher the number in that B, the darker it is. If it has an H in a number, it's going to be a harder graphite, and so it's going to be lighter. And the higher the number in the H, the lighter that pencil will be. So I hope that helps you out. I hope you have fun today.
So as I said, you will need a piece of paper. You will also need a pencil and a ruler and an eraser. I am sure you're wondering which way to put your paper. We're going with up and down, vertical, not horizontal. So go ahead and grab your ruler and a pencil. We are going to start our first line going from the upper left-hand side and add a slight diagonal down to, I would say, a little above middle to the right-hand side. You want to allow a little bit of room from each edge. Now, you will notice my pencil lines here at first are rather light. Until I get things set up, I want to keep those pencil lines light. Remember, you always draw light until you've got it right. I am going to make my cross beam here. This is the first cross beam of the cross, and then the other one will be straight up and down. So this is the horizontal cross beam, and then we'll draw the vertical one. But I'm making my horizontal cross beam. I'm going to make it about 1.5 inches thick. So from the top section of that cross beam, I measured 1.5 inches down, and then I measured in the middle of that cross beam 1.5 inches down, and I did it a third time. So that way I know that I'm going to have 2 parallel lines drawn with my ruler across my paper, and I want to put a little end line on each side. So again, I made that cross beam 1.5 inches thick. Next, I'm going to find where middle is on that section I just drew, and then I'm going to do an an 1.5 inch measurement around middle. So essentially I'm doing 3/4 of an inch on one side of middle and 3/4 of an inch on the other side of middle. So that way my vertical segment will be 1.5 inches wide, but half of it will be on one side of middle and half of it will be on the other side of middle. And then I draw 2 vertical lines for that segment, and I draw a top to it too. And I do want to tilt my top to be at the same angle as my cross segment, my horizontal segment of the cross. So you can see that it's not a straight across line on the top of my cross there. Now I'm drawing the thickness of my cross beam as if we were seeing the thickness of that wood. I'm going to do an angle on that to make sure that it looks like it's going back into space. So it's a little slight angle going the opposite way of the original cross beam. Then I do the bottom angle, again going the opposite way from that original cross beam. And the very next thing that I will do after I finish getting the bottom in is I will put on another line on the very bottom part of that cross beam, so that now you can see the side of that cross beam and the bottom of the cross beam. So it's giving you a look as if we're standing off to the lower left hand side of this cross looking up at it. To create the vertical section of that beam, that vertical beam in the middle of our cross, we're going to measure 3/4 of an inch out from that beam and draw a vertical line. Now, if 3/4 of an inch is hard for you to find, you could also use 1.5 centimeters. That's about 3/4 of an inch. And then you just draw the vertical line, and you also want to make sure to connect it to the top of the cross so that it looks like it's at the same angle going back as the side of the cross that you drew a little bit ago. Now we have the cross drawn. So I take my eraser and I'm just going to erase the cross lines that are in the middle of that cross because we don't want those there. Next, we will add a drape to the cross. A lot of people add a white drape to the cross that they display at Easter time to symbolize the purity and wholeness that Christ demonstrated through his resurrection. To add this drape, you will start at the top of the left-hand side of the cross there, and you're going to come down, bring a U across over to the right-hand side, and then you will want to do a second U that comes back up and around to create the outer edge of that drape. After the U is drawn, you want to bring down a back section of that drape so you can show the ends of the drape. You will see more of the end on the left side than what you would see on the right side. Now it is time to start shading. The first thing I will do is I will use my pencil to add a little bit of a jagged line across the top of the cross, and then I will start drawing some vertical lines. We're looking to create a wood grain here, and wood grains are pretty simple to create. They're just basically vertical lines all going next to each other. Every once in a while there'll be a knot in the wood and you will create kind of an oval with a point on the end. You can try to make it look like mine, or if yours looks a little different, that's okay, because no two wood grains are alike. At this point, I am switching over to my 4B pencil. It is going to add a little bit more depth to have darker lines. If you have a darker pencil, you can switch. If you don't, just keep on drawing with that HB or number 2 pencil and it'll still look great in the end. Now I start shading with my pencil a little bit. Because the cross isn't white, it would be a color. So I will shade this side that's facing us the lightest of the colors, and you'll see me later shade darker on the side that is facing to the left, and then the side that would be facing down. I do want to mention that I started in the middle of this drawing, which was a terrible idea because my hand is going to be smearing all of that I'm shading. So in a second here, you'll see that I grab a piece of paper to cover up the drawing that I have already created. Really, what I should have done was I should have started on the left side because I am right-handed. And if you are left-handed, you would have started on the right side. So that's just a tip for you as you're drawing. If you didn't do that today, now you know it for future times. As I said earlier, I will be shading this side, this left-facing side of the cross, darker than the side that is facing us, the viewer. And that is so that it looks three-dimensional. So when you have something that is rectangle or cube type shaped, you will always have one side that is lightest, one side that is a medium tone, and one side that is darkest. For our cross, which is all rectangle shape, we will have the side that is facing us, the viewer of the artwork, as our lightest. We will have the left-facing ends, which I just shaded the left-facing side of the main segment, and now I'm shading the left-facing side of the end of the cross there. Those will be our medium tones. And then here in a little bit, you'll see me shading the bottom part of that horizontal segment of the cross, and I will shade that our darkest tone. My hand is going to cover up what I'm drawing right now, so you won't be able to see it exceptionally well, but it's two lines going down into the cross and then a kind of rounded top on it, and that's supposed to be one of the nails that would have held Jesus's hands to the cross. And I will add another one of those on the other side for the other nail. I do not add a bottom one, so it's up to you how you handle that. If you want to add a bottom nail or spike into the bottom of this cross, you can. Because it's a little sketchy, I just kind of let the bottom of it be assumed that it's going to run off of our paper, but you can add the bottom spike and finish up the bottom of that cross if you like that look better. From here, I am going to speed up this video a little bit just so that way you can get started with your artwork. I do want to touch just a little bit on how to shade the drape. I will first just put a line where there would be a wrinkle in the fabric, and later I'll add a little bit of light shading on either side of that line, but I try to allow some of the white of the paper just to show through too, because it's supposed to be a white drape. So everything you'll see from here on, I have already discussed at some point, but you can stop this video and rewatch any segment as many times as you need. So please feel free to do that so that you can have a successful drawing in the end. I hope you enjoy and are able to create an awesome, wonderful cross that you can either share with someone or hang in your own room. Going to add a little shadow next to the drape just to make it look a little more three-dimensional. Then I use my eraser. That's an electronic eraser, and I also had my regular square eraser, and then I will use a paintbrush sometimes to get the eraser bits off of my paper. I'm not painting at all with that paintbrush. That paintbrush is completely dry without any paint on it. When I do use it, it's to get the eraser bits off of the paper. I do want to say here on the cloth, if you have a blending stump and you would like to use that at all, you are welcome to use it. I use it at just a small amount on the right side of the blending stump after I finish with the eraser there, right there at the blending stump. And you can use that if you want, but it is not necessary at all. And very last, do not forget to sign your artwork. Hope you enjoyed this project.